Broadcasting from the ARN Racing Studios in Southern California, a turn for media company, ARN Los Angeles. This is ARN, the American Racing Network, the Motorsports Authority. Now,
drivers, start your engine!
You're shifting gears on ARN with Alan Bailey.
Well, there goes the neighborhood.
You name it, we got it. NASCAR.
Kyle Busch, the 2015 NASCAR Sprint Cup champion.
Yeah, you guys are awesome!
Indycar.
Scott Dixon not only wins in Sonoma, but wins the 2015 championship.
We win on the tiebreak.
Incredible performance.
Drag racing.
Pop the corks, Antron Brown is the champion for the second time in his career.
Supercross.
Ryan Dungey becomes the 2015 Monster Energy AMA Supercross champion.
And so much more. So get ready. You're shifting gears on ARN with Alan Bailey.
That you are. Welcome on in, Gearheads. I'm Alan Bailey. Shifting gears, number 308 on Wednesday, February 24th, 2016. Coming at you from the ARN studios here in Southern California. Wow. Daytona 500 cannot get any better than that. Well, at least the finish couldn't. Denny Hamlin, your 2016 Daytona 500 champ. Only Joe Gibbs Racing's second Daytona 500 championship as well. Now, at the Alan Bailey on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Lots to cover. Speed Week's wrapping up down in Daytona Beach as the NASCAR circuit heads on to Atlanta Motor Speedway for this weekend's race. Just so happens to be where Supercross is heading this weekend. There will be in Atlanta as well. So if you're anywhere near the Atlanta weekend, near Atlanta right now, Gearheads, you are in for one heck of a treat. Indeed. You also have the NHRA, which are stopping off at Phoenix this weekend. Lots to cover over the course of the next hour. The only thing that we can do to kick everything off appropriately is start with today's, hot topics. You guessed it. Now, we start with Denny Hamlin, who won the 2016 Daytona 500 in his 11th attempt in the 11th car. See, I joked about that weeks ago with him. He thought it would be kind of cool, and it came to fruition. Pretty darn cool as well. Closest finish in Daytona 500 history. He edged out Martin Truex Jr. by a narrow nose. Very, very close finish down there in Daytona Beach. Martin Truex Jr. coming home second. It was the 18 of Kyle Busch coming home third, with the 4 of Kevin Harvick coming home fourth. You had Carl Edwards, a surprising fifth after significant aero damage on that number 19 Toyota. Pretty good group of top 5 finishers, if you ask me. And how does Joe Gibbs Racing celebrate a Daytona 500 championship? Same way they did back in '93 with Dale Jarrett. They went to Steak and Shake at 2 in the morning with the Daytona 500 trophy. Very funny photo up on ARNrace.com of the coach and some senior executives at Joe Gibbs Racing, Toyota officials as well, having lunch at Steak and Shake at 2 in the morning. Hey, no big deal, guys. Just, getting a little Steak and Shake and hanging out with the Daytona 500 trophy, Harley Hill trophy. No big deal. Very cool photo up on ARNrace.com. Also at ARNrace on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Also in the NASCAR world, shocking news that literally no one saw coming, totally out of left field. Stewart-HAAS Racing, big announcement today. And no, I'm not talking about Ty Dillon's announcement yesterday. I'm talking about the fact that Stewart-HAAS Racing will race Fords in 2017. No, you're not hallucinating. That was a real story. Stewart-HAAS Racing, for the first time in almost 10 years, going to be racing a non-GM vehicle as they make the switch over to Ford, getting engines from Roush 8 in 2017. A lot of reaction in and around the garage because of this story. We'll have it later in this hour. Alexander Rossi going to be making a switch. He's going to be driving for Andretti Autosport in the Verizon Indycar Series in 2016. He's going to be driving the full schedule. We'll have more on this later in the program. And Ty Dillon making headlines as well. After much speculation, it was confirmed by Stewart-HAAS Racing yesterday that the Xfinity driver Ty Dillon going to be driving that number 14 for 3 of the next 4 races in the NASCAR Sprint Cup Series, substituting for the healing Tony Stewart in that legendary car. Ken Roczen picked up the win this last weekend in Arlington, but the main story was a very, very hard crash by Joey Savacci. No word on how he is doing yet. We will give you the latest as it becomes available to us. Ken Roczen did pick up the win in 450, and in 250 it was, stop me if you've heard this before, Cooper Webb picking up the victory in that one as well. Never heard that story before, not at all. And the NASCAR Xfinity Series race, it was another close finish, not as close as the 500, but in Xfinity, it was Chase Elliott out-dueling Joey Logano in the number 22 to pick up the win in that number 88 Junior Motorsports entry with Tax Slayer on the side of that car. First win of the season for Joey Logano in a very close finish indeed. And in the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series, it was Johnny Sauter in the number 21 truck with Smoky Mountain on the car, picking up the victory after a very violent and wild finish. You're going to want to stick around for this one. And also in the Verizon IndyCar Series, it was Helio Castroneves making headlines as he'll return to a very familiar paint scheme for the 100th running of the Indianapolis 500 this May. He's going to be driving that yellow submarine Pennzoil car again, that number 3. Very cool paint job right now. It's up on ARNrace.com as well. Also at ARNrace on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram if you want to take a look at his extremely cool retro paint scheme, similar to what he drove last year. From the ARN News Desk, I'm Alan Bailey. That's your Hot Topics. Lots of stuff to cover. Amazing finish by Denny Hamlin. Amazing finish. Don't want to take away from that. That's obviously the main thing that we're going to be talking about. Like I said, second Daytona 500 championship for Joe Gibbs Racing, 11th attempt in the 11th car. I gave Hamlin, flack about that a couple weeks ago when he was out here in Southern California for a media event promoting the races when NASCAR comes out west, starting next week with Las Vegas. And we were joking about how, it would be so cool to get the 11th, to get a win in the number 11th car in the 11th try for Denny Hamlin. And he got it. He barely got it, edging out Martin Truex Jr. by just a couple hundredths of just 1/100th of a second, which is insanely close, especially at those speeds. And if you look at how the pass happened, it's even more impressive because you really had this amazing run right there at the end that really culminated in Denny getting on the outside and barely getting an aero draft off the 78 and passing him. If you actually look on ARNrace.com, there's an infograph up. Basically, going down the backstretch, Denny Hamlin got a push from Kevin Harvick on the outside. His teammate Matt Kenseth leading the 78 and the 18 in tow on the inside lane. He got that push. Race leader Matt Kenseth moved up the racetrack, attempted to block, went a little too high. Hamlin dove down underneath him. They went 3 wide. The 20 car got sideways in front of Hamlin, off the bumper of Hamlin. Hamlin kept in the gas. The 20 car went back and fell way back, but Hamlin had the 4 in tow, had the 78 on the inside coming off that final turn, and boy, did we see a heck of a match. And what was very interesting is if you actually look at the photo finish, Harvick is nowhere near Hamlin, but the 18 is near the 78, so the 78 did have a bit of an arrow push from the 18, but I could tell Kyle was kind of holding back a little. He saw what was happening, so he held back a little bit, but Harvick had a perfect view. That video is also up on ARNrace.com if you want to check out that amazing photo finish from Kevin Harvick's perspective. That is a heck of a view. Harvick had the onboard camera, and from his roof, you saw everything from the backstretch all the way to the start-finish line. It was a heck of a finish. It truly was. That is what Daytona racing is all about. I don't want to be leading on that white flag lap. I want to be 3rd, 4th, 5th with somebody behind me pushing or pulling, because that's what it ultimately comes down to, is putting yourself in that position. That's what Denny Hamlin did. He's definitely paid his dues. There was a big question of, does Denny deserve this? He absolutely does. And if you don't think Denny Hamlin deserves a Daytona 500 win, go back and look at every single race he's run for the last 10 years on restrictor plate tracks. He won the Unlimited last Saturday, and he won the 500. He's won the dual races before, and he's dominated in those, and he was up front all race long. He was there. No, it sucks for his teammate Matt Kenseth, who did lead the closing laps and most of the closing laps right there. But you know what? That doesn't pay anything. You have to lead that last lap, and that's what Denny Hamlin did by just that much, and that's all it took to claim his first Daytona 500 championship. Notice I said first, because I do think Hamlin will win this again, because he truly is a phenomenal restrictor plate racer. He's won at Talladega. He's won at Daytona. He's going to continue to rattle off these 500, these restrictor plate wins, rather. And I tend to believe, he could actually get another 500 before his career's up. He's still a very young driver, I believe, even though he's been in the sport 10 years. But he's got another at least 10, 15 years ahead of him in this sport, as long as he stays healthy and as long as he's got competitive rides under him. I think he's very much solidified his position at Joe Gibbs Racing, because there was speculation of, I don't know if Hamlin's going to stick around, because if somebody's got to go, Hamlin is frankly the guy who's not performing that well. Now, with that being said, he made the chase last year and he won 3 races last year, and he just won the biggest race of his career this a few days ago, but that's what Joe Gibbs Racing is doing right now. They expanded to 4 cars, and typically when that happens, you ultimately have to give up some performance with the other 3 cars to get the 4th one going. Not the case. They won an astronomical amount of races in 2015 with Carl Edwards coming over from Roush Fenway for that 4th car. 14 wins for Joe Gibbs Racing in 2015. We talked about it last year. Just an insane amount of wins for a 4-car organization. 2 Joe Gibbs Racing cars in 2016, up until the 500. Now 3. That's insane. That means only 1 time of the possible 4 times that we've seen checkered flags drop in 2016, a Joe Gibbs Racing car wasn't first to the line. That's insane. That is absolutely bonkers to me. And they're going to keep this up. Toyota is going to continue to give them what they need, and it was a huge win for Toyota, their first Daytona 500 win, and it was even larger and it meant more for Toyota, because Toyota helped to pay and helped build the Daytona 500, the Daytona International Speedway, with their new Daytona Rising program, with that Toyota expansion on the outside that brought in this really cool fan area on the outside of the Daytona International Speedway. So now Toyota and Daytona have this huge partnership, and the fact that you saw Denny Hamlin win the race in the Sprint Unlimited, you saw Kyle Busch win one of the dual races, and then you saw Denny cap it off with the 500 for Speed Weeks. Huge weekend for Joe Gibbs Racing, even bigger for Toyota. We'll talk about it more later on this hour. Here's my question to you. 3 wins for the number 11 car in the Daytona 500. Now, the number 11 car is the most winningest car number in the history of NASCAR, but only 3 times, including this last weekend with Denny Hamlin, has it gone to victory lane in the Great American Race. So, my question is this: who drove the other 2 Daytona 500s? And yes, it is 2 separate drivers, 3 drivers altogether that have won in that 11 car in the Daytona 500. So which two drivers drove a number 11 car to a Daytona 500 win, and what years did they do it in? Drop me a line at The Alan Bailey, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Take a wild shot. One name is literally the biggest name in all of racing. There's a hint. And the second one is a huge name in NASCAR. Huge name. And if you've been a fan for more than 10 years in the sport, you know who it is. So do me a favor. Don't go anywhere. Sit right there, because you're shifting gears right here on ARN.
Take ARN anywhere. Download your favorite ARN programs on iTunes. Keyword search ARN and listen online at arnrace.com. Any Napa guy knows, and science proves, the best minivan is the one you've already got. Part kid transporter, part drywall mover. Who cares if the faux wood grain is a little faded? That was a platinum package option in 1987. With over 400,000 parts and a little Napa know-how, you can keep anything on the road. Because it's not old, it's vintage. That's Napa know-how.
It's the Nerdgasm Podcast.
I want to point this out, though. I think Kylo's getting you're getting a bad rep, Kylo, because he stopped a laser blast midair. He can suck thoughts out of your mind.
Yep.
He doesn't fear anybody.
Yep.
Takes a laser blast from Chewie's weapon.
Yep.
Not afraid to show his face. Approaches his enemies often. Fights while bleeding out in the freezing cold.
Oh, yeah.
And he's labeled a crybaby.
All right.
How is he labeled a crybaby?
The internet has labeled him a crybaby.
You know what?
Oh my god.
I'm not the internet. I don't know.
Kylo took a lightsaber to the face.
He did.
And he just gave the death stare. He wasn't crying.
That was blood dripping down his face.
Those weren't tears. That was blood, dude.
Exactly. And if you want to claim that it were tears, then it was clearly the snow all over his face.
Now we can set the record straight.
All right.
So, Kylo, no cry baby.
Download new episodes of the Nerdgasm Podcast every Friday on nerdgasmpodcast.com, on iTunes, and now available on Stitcher.
You must have thrown 1,000 pitches teaching him to hit a home run. Spent countless Saturdays running routes so he could learn to hit an open receiver. Endless afternoons teaching him how to hit the three-pointer. But how much time have you spent teaching him what not to hit? Teaching boys that all violence against women is wrong is one of the most important things a man can do. Learn how to start the conversation at teachearly.org. Brought to you by Futures Without Violence and the Ad Council.
You're shifting gears on ARN. Here's Alan Bailey.
That you are, my friends. Welcome on in. You're shifting gears right here on ARN. I'm Alan Bailey at The Alan Bailey, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. My question to you today, Denny Hamlin won the Great American Race this last weekend. However, which three drivers also which two other drivers piloted the number 11 car to a victory in the Great American Race? And what year did they do it in? At The Alan Bailey, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. You can also use the hashtag ARNRace to send it in as well. I want you to sound off on this one because I want to test your knowledge a little bit. I think you know, but we gotta make sure that you guys are all good here. So, interesting race, to say the very least, this last weekend out in Daytona. It wasn't the usual drama that we saw, but we did see some things that were extraordinarily interesting. So for that sake, what we're going to go ahead and do is get a race recap from our friends over at NASCAR.com, more specifically, Jonathan Merriman. Jonathan?
Actor Gerard Butler gave the command to start engines, and Ken Griffey Jr. dropped the green flag for the 58th running of the Daytona 500. Chase Elliott, the youngest ever driver to start the 500 from the pole, would lead 3 laps before Dale Earnhardt Jr. would take the lead on lap 4. Lap 19, Chase Elliott gets loose, spins into the infield grass. For a split second, it looked like the rookie was going to come out okay, but watch him here. He hits the grass, takes out a huge divot out of the infield, tears the nose of that car up in the process. Regan Smith and Carl Edwards, they came close to hitting the rookie there, but they avoided that wreck and would continue on in the race. The 24 wasn't so lucky. Chase Elliott's car would be taken behind the wall, and he ends the day in 37th place. 56 laps in, Brian Vickers goes for a spin off the exit of turn 4. Dale Jr. and Michael Waltrip, they steer clear right there by that 14 car, but Carl Edwards, he checks up. Trevor Bayne gets into the back of the 19, and Carl Edwards cannot avoid his second mishap of the day. He runs into the outside wall. Vickers' car, however, is unscathed. Dale Earnhardt Jr. gets loose off of turn 4. He jets across the track, hits the inside wall, destroying the front end of the car he calls Amelia. Junior's shot at a third Daytona 500 would have to wait another year as he ends the day in 36th. 17 laps to go, Greg Biffle makes contact with Danica Patrick. That sends her on a wild ride through the grass. Watch the car bounce. It gets a little bit of air, but on the landing, the grass would tear the nose off of Danica's car, and the former Daytona 500 pole winner would take the car behind the wall. On the run to the checkered, JGR looked strong, running 1 through 5, including their affiliate, Martin Truex Jr., but it was Denny Hamlin who put a run together, making it past his teammate Matt Kenseth, and he ends up holding off Martin Truex Jr. by inches at the finish line in the closest finish in the Daytona 500 ever. Next weekend, the NASCAR Sprint Cup Series heads to Atlanta Motor Speedway for the Folds of Honor Quick Trip 500. And for more highlights and NASCAR news, make sure you log on to NASCAR.com. For NASCAR, I'm Jonathan Merriman.
Thank you, Jonathan. That's your recap of the 2016 Daytona 500. And yeah, look, we saw some great racing in the pack. We really did. But other than the handful of wrecks we saw, it was a very uneventful race. It really was. We saw the 24 get loose, and I'm going to call that a rookie mistake because it was. Chase Elliott was not used to racing on these restrictor plate tracks in a cup car. He's still getting used to it. And it's something that he's still developing and getting used to, so I'll call that a rookie mistake. Dale Jr. just simply got loose. It happens. Aero packages do tend to lead this to happen, and it's just something that inherently happens. No big deal. He got loose, but unfortunately, he did hit that inside wall, no saving it there, and he ended his day. More importantly, wrecked a car that he won with out in Talladega and a handful of other races this on restrictor plate tracks, which means that you've got a really good car in his stable that's done, at least for the time being, but plenty of time to get that car ready for Talladega, so Junior Nation, just relax. Junior can still drive a car that he really likes on restrictor plates on the next restrictor plate race. You have until the end of April to really get that car going, and knowing the folks at Hendrick Motorsports, it's probably already mostly fixed by this point, to be perfectly honest. It's at least broken down, and they're starting to rebuild that thing at this point. I can guarantee you that. Danica Patrick ultimately, just a racing incident at Talladega Daytona Restrictor Plate Racing 101. Biffle got into the back of her and really spun her into the infield. I'll say this though, people have been wondering why did she go for that dramatic of a ride, and the reason is, and this is a shocker, the grass is not level. Far from it. It's very hilly, dippy, and ultimately, I'm surprised we haven't seen a car get more airborne like that because of the grass in the infield on the backstretch at Daytona International Speedway. It's a product that I saw when I was at the track a few years ago after they repaved it. They didn't work on leveling out that grass. No grass on any track has ever been 100% level, and that includes the front stretch at the Daytona International Speedway. Grass has hills, it has dips, it has everything. On TV, it looks real level and nice and pretty, but in real life, it's very, very rough and very bumpy and hilly, and in particularly down in turns 3 and 4 at the Daytona International Speedway, we see that in the infield right there, grass area, grass section. So it's something that happens, but ultimately, the run that Denny Hamlin got was because he got one heck of a push from the 4-car of Kevin Harvick, and really Harvick was just pushing to try to get up there and just try to really make something happen, and by the time he got near the bumper of the 11, they were in 3 and 4. Ultimately, Harvick went as high up as he could, but ultimately didn't really have what he needed in order to try to get around the 11. He more or less ran out of time before the 11 car crossed the start-finish line just inches ahead of the 78, his corporate teammate. It was the closest finish in Daytona 500 history. It's 1/100th of a second, which is 0.011 of a second, believe it or not. Insanely close finish. And it's Denny Hamlin's. He's the champion of the Daytona 500 in 2016. Just an amazing run for him. But yeah, what ultimately led to that run? You look halfway down the backstretch at the overhead shot of these cars. You had the 20, the 78, the 18, the 19, the 42, the 31, and the 5 all bunched up. However, there was a good amount of gaps in between all these cars. There was a gap between the 20 and the 78, another huge gap between the 78 and the 18, a gap between the 19 and the 42. Just gaps everywhere. You look at the outside lane, though, the 11, the 4, 22, 7, and the 3 were all lined up bumper to bumper to bumper, pushing each other. And Ultimately, they got one heck of a run going down the backstretch while the inside line was more spread out, which led the 11 car to get one heck of a run going into 3 and 4. Middle of 3 and 4, he dive bombs to the outside inside, gets around Kenseth. Kenseth gets loose on the high side, and everybody freight trains him at that point as everybody comes steaming by him. You see a mad scurry as everything starts to unfold as they get out of the turn and onto the front stretch, and then you saw the 78 actually pass the 11 car halfway through the front stretch, halfway to the finish line off the turn, and then the 11 car just side draft, and he got it by almost nothing. Really, it was nothing. And then, not that it matters, but the 78 passed him down at the exit of pit road. So there was that. He did redeem himself a little bit, but it was an insanely close finish, photo finish, very reminiscent to the very first Daytona 500, nearly 60 years ago. And you can't ask for anything more than that as a race fan. You really, truly cannot. It was a phenomenal finish. It really, truly was. And we probably will see that again, but not for a very long time in our lifetime, friends, I hate to say. So enjoy it while you have it. Now, another huge story that happened in the NASCAR world today, the fact that Stewart-HAAS Racing, which has been racing with General Motor cars since its inception in Sprint Cup more than 10 years ago, switching to Fords in 2017. I'm not kidding. Very few times can you actually hold a secret in the garage area. Everybody knows what's happening. However, this was a legitimate secret that nobody saw coming. Nobody. No one knew about this. Not a single person knew about this. And we're going to see a 4-car organization switch over to Chevy, and it just so happens to be Stewart-HAAS Racing, which has had an amazing technical run with Hendrick Motorsports for more or less its entire existence. And it's very interesting that this is now happening. The other organization that is a championship caliber organization to join Ford in the past 5 seasons would be Team Penske, left Dodge, which exited NASCAR at the start of the 2013 season. So 3 years ago, they switched over to Ford, and we did see kind of Penske Racing, I don't want to say surge, but they kind of kept that good streak going. They had a really good last season with Dodge. They won the championship in 2012 with Brad Keselowski and with Dodge, and then in 2013 you saw some really good runs out of Penske Racing, and heck, last season alone you had Joey Logano win the Daytona 500, so they kind of carried their success from Dodge into Ford, and I kind of see that happening with Stewart-HAAS Racing as well, but it's something that's very interesting. Tony Stewart said in a press release, quote, "I am proud of our association with Chevrolet. They helped build our organization into the team it is today. This new partnership with Ford allows us to strengthen our position in the sport and ensure the long-term stability and success for everyone who is a part of Stewart-HAAS Racing," unquote. Stewart-HAAS Racing going to be competing with Ford engines supplied by Roush Yates Engines. It had been previously receiving chassis and engines from Hendrick Motorsports. And what is an interesting side note, they actually did hire the chassis expert from Hendrick Motorsports a year ago. So I don't want to say this is a long time coming, but this is something that definitely is something that maybe they've been planning for a little bit, and that's to branch out and do something, on their own for a little bit as far as their technical support and as far as their just their team itself, because they have been closely related with Hendrick Motorsports since they got into the sport, and now they're more or less out on their own. Now, the NASCAR community, to say the least, is shocked, I guess could be one appropriate term to use for this. I don't know. I mean, I was extremely shocked. I thought it was a joke when I first saw the release. I truly did. But the NASCAR world wasted absolutely no time reacting to this piece of news out of the garage area today. And really, it was interesting. Mike Joy said on Twitter @MikeJoy500, that's the NASCAR equivalent of the Rams moving to Los Angeles. Wow. Joey Logano welcomed them on his Twitter handle. Larry McReynolds @LarryMac28 said on Twitter, "It's rare to have a true announcement anymore in NASCAR today, but Stewart-HAAS Racing to Ford in 2017 is huge. Lots of layers affecting lots of folks. Absolutely. You saw so many great reactions. You saw Ricky Stenhouse. You saw the Wood brothers welcoming on their Twitter accounts. Eric Amarola, Ryan Blaney, Team Penske, all welcoming them. Ford Performance had probably the best one. They tweeted out a GIF of Jon Stewart on The Daily Show saying "boom" over and over again to it. I mean, very interesting statement to say the very least, and that kind of carried over basically from in the fan zone. Really, we saw a lot of interesting reactions from everybody in the NASCAR world that really makes everybody kind of raise their head and go, ooh. This one coming in, I'm a Chevy guy. My guy is switching to Ford, but I sure was cheering for a few Toyotas last weekend. That's coming from Frankie Ruiz Jr. on Twitter. And yeah, I mean, listen, I used to be the guy, I used to be the fan that was like, oh, I'm only this brand. Oh, I'm only root for this team. And now I kind of don't see them anymore. I don't see brands. I don't see teams. I see this guy hasn't won in a while. I think it'd be cool if he won. That's why I love Denny Hamlin, and I love Martin Truex Jr. going at it for the 500 this last weekend. Neither one of them have won it. Huge accomplishment for both of them. It would have meant more, I think, to Martin Truex Jr. to pick up the win in the 500 than it does to Denny Hamlin, because Martin does not win as many races as Hamlin does, but still a very huge weekend for the both of them. For Stewart-HAAS Racing, they'll pick up where they left off. Whatever they do this season will happen next season. It's just something that ultimately will happen. This one coming from Tim Barker Jr. What Stewart-HAAS runs in other series doesn't matter. Penske runs Ford and Cup and Chevy in IndyCar. Ganassi runs Chevy and Cup, Ford in sports cars. Yes, but to be clear, Tim Banker, Stewart-HAAS Racing only competes in Sprint Cup. Haas F1 team is totally separate, if you're referring to that, and it's something that I don't think is going to affect what they do in other series, because they don't race in other series. I certainly think it'll affect where drivers like Danica Patrick, Kevin Harvick, and Kurt Busch race in lower divisions after this season, because all three have been Chevy drivers forever, including owner Tony Stewart, who is retiring next year. But Kevin Harvick, he's racing for Junior Motorsports in the number 88 in the Xfinity race this weekend out at Atlanta. That's a partnership that cannot exist after next season, because Chevy doesn't want to see a non-Chevy driver in one of their cars, especially for an organization like Junior Motorsports. So Junior Motorsports essentially is losing a handful of its cup ringers, if you will, for their Xfinity program. But also, if Kevin Harvick, Kurt Busch, Danica Patrick want to go run an Xfinity race, they got to find a partnership somewhere else. Now, could this lead to Stewart-HAAS Racing fielding a part-time Xfinity car next year? Yes, it's very easily a potential thing, but another organization that does run a very strong Xfinity program, that does have Cup guys go down to their program often, is Team Penske. You look at it, the number 22 is raced by a number of different drivers, including Joey Logano, Brad Keselowski, and now Ryan Blaney, all running a handful of races in that 22. What's to keep Kevin Harvick from driving that 22 car, or another Penske-fielded Xfinity car in 2017? It's a possibility, if that's what you're thinking, and that's something that could go from there. Trevor Godwin on Twitter, Alan Bailey, how doesn't this team have the stability right now? It has engines and chassis supplied by Hendrick. Yeah, however, financial support from Ford long-term provides more stability, and that's probably what they want. That's probably what they were looking for. It's a money thing. It's all about a money thing. Here's another one. Hendrick Motorsports technically partnered with Haas Automation and will continue beyond... Or Hendrick Motorsports' technical partnership with Haas Automation will continue beyond 2016. The company provides CNC products to support Hendrick Motorsports since 1996. That's something that's I think, apparent and something that is worth mentioning in this deal. Stewart said that Ford resources will resources to which Stewart-HAAS Racing will have access to caught their attention, and it triggered the move, which is also something you have to keep in mind, because for what Ford has access to and what Chevrolet and GM has access to, two completely different things. I'm not saying one is well-funded, one is not. One has more resources, one does not. I'm saying what Ford is willing to share from their pile of toys, if you will, versus what GM was willing to share from their pile of toys. Two completely different things, possibly. I don't know. I wasn't involved in this deal. I don't have any quote-unquote special insight knowledge. It's just what we're being told. Because frankly, no reporter, nobody in that garage area, and that's including people at Stewart-HAAS Racing or Ford, knew about this. This was totally behind closed doors, and this was completely closed off from all media members. Just insanely cool deal. Insanely crazy that they actually kept this to themselves. Stewart did say that Stewart-HAAS Racing will add personnel to do its own chassis program starting next season, which I'm a huge fan of, which means more jobs in the NASCAR community for frankly talented people who have worked for organizations like Michael Waltrip Racing and other organizations that have closed their doors in the last 5 years. The NASCAR world is a very small, tight-knit world, even though it is large, and there are people out there who, when they lose their job, they go unemployed for a number of years because there's no jobs out there. There are a limited number of jobs out there, and Cup teams and Xfinity and Truck Series teams that run in this series, and when there's no jobs, there's no jobs. We saw the fields shrink in all three divisions this year, so there's less cars out there, which means less positions. This is a good thing. You're bringing more people into the sport, essentially, and keeping them employed, and I'm a huge fan and advocate of creating jobs here in America within our sport. It's very, very, very cool right there. Now, going to go ahead and step aside. When we get back, going to talk some IndyCar racing. Alexander Rossi switching over from one open wheel series to another, moving over to IndyCar with Andretti Autosports. What led him to decide this? You'll hear from him. Ken Roczen won this last weekend out in Arlington, but really, does he still have time to actually contend for this championship, mathematically speaking? We'll discuss it when we get back. Do yourself a favor. Don't go anywhere. You're shifting gears right here on ARN.
Sick of bad race coverage or none at all from those other networks? Make ARN your one and only for all things motorsports. ARN, the Motorsports Authority.
It's the Nerdgasm Podcast.
I want to point this out, though. I think Kylo's getting you're getting a bad rep, Kylo, because he stopped a laser blast midair. He can suck thoughts out of your mind.
Yep.
He doesn't fear anybody.
Yep.
Takes a laser blast from Chewie's weapon.
Yep.
Not afraid to show his face. Approaches his enemies often. Fights while bleeding out in the freezing cold.
Oh, yeah.
And he's labeled a crybaby.
All right.
How is he labeled a crybaby?
The internet has labeled him a crybaby.
You know what?
Oh my gosh.
I'm not the internet. I don't know.
Kylo took a lightsaber to the face.
He did.
And he just gave the death stare. He wasn't crying.
That was blood dripping down his face.
Those weren't tears. That was blood, dude.
Exactly. And if you want to claim that it were tears, then it was clearly the snow all over his face.
Now we can set the record straight.
All right.
So, Kylo, no cry baby.
Download new episodes of the Nerdgasm Podcast every Friday on nerdgasmpodcast.com, on iTunes, and now available on Stitcher.
Tile doesn't have to look like tile. New Cotto tile from the Home Depot looks like modern industrial concrete, and it starts at just $1.99 a square foot. Pair that with a brick look tile, or tile that looks like wood, or marble, and you've got a palette of easy-to-install options. This look is the next generation of tiling. New industrial concrete-looking modern Cotto tile starts at just $1.99 a square foot. The Home Depot. More saving, more doing. U.S. only.
Download and listen to your favorite ARN programs on the go. Download Shifting Gears on ARNrace.com, iTunes, and now available on the Stitcher app. ARN, the Motorsports Authority.
You're shifting gears on ARN. Here's Alan Bailey.
lots of you are continuing to react to the news that Stewart-HAAS Racing moving over to Ford in 2017. That announcement coming as a huge shock to the NASCAR community as they made that announcement earlier today on their website through a media release. But there's news elsewhere going on in the world of racing. Let's talk some IndyCar racing as we shift gears away from NASCAR a little bit. Alexander Rossi going to be joining Andretti Autosport for the 2016 Verizon IndyCar season, and he actually had a chance to really answer some questions and really talk about why his decision to move over came now, and more importantly, what really led him to decide to drive for Andretti Autosport and what led to this partnership. Take a listen to Alexander Rossi.
Yeah, no, it's a very exciting day. I'm very happy to be here at Andretti and to be racing in the IndyCar Series next year. And it was a last-minute deal, but it's something that I'm very proud to be a part of, and it's great to be with such an established team, and I can't really wait to get started in St. Pete. And I know that I have a lot to learn and a lot to absorb in a short period of time, but like I said, I'm very much looking forward to it. It's a little bit weird to come back to the States, if I'm honest, because as you said, I left when I was 17 years old, and I've been over there ever since in racing in Europe, and it's really what I've grown accustomed to and what I know. So, as odd as it may sound, it's a little bit foreign for me to actually come back to the States. But I've really enjoyed it so far, my first couple of days here, and I know that it's a little bit of a different approach, and there are some things that are different, but at the same time, it's very easy to see why this is such a great championship, and I can't wait to turn my first laps. But definitely having guys that I know for sure makes it easier. I mean, I know Connor very well, and I've raced against him in the European kind of ladder system for quite a few years, and Joseph as well. So it is nice to have some people that you can kind of lean on and rely on for questions and just understanding. And it's great. They're all based in Indy, so it's very easy to kind of be with them and hang out and just enjoy the experience. It's a very exciting feeling to think about the 100th running of the 500, and obviously oval racing is new to me, but I've watched that race ever since I was a kid growing up, and it's something that I think all of us have a massive amount of appreciation and respect for, and I'm so excited about the month of May and just getting on track and feeling the atmosphere and experiencing what it's all about. It's the ultimate year to be doing it, and I'm very, very privileged to be in this position to have the opportunity. Knowing that I could drive for Michael and Andretti Autosport was something that was a very big influencing factor in the decision that we made to come here. And from the first phone conversation, I knew that we'd be able to get along quite well, and he can relate to kind of what I've been through. And he's a racer at heart, so he gets it and he understands. And that's made this transition, pretty seamless so far. And I think that once I do get on track and start to have questions, there's really no better person to have in your corner as Michael. I have very high expectations. I have high expectations every time that I get into a race car, no matter what it is. So, I understand that there's a learning curve, but at the same time, I feel quite comfortable on street courses. And at the end of the day, I think the race car's very comparable to other things I've driven before. So definitely in St. Pete, I'm looking to come out quite strong, and then we'll see how it goes from there. But I think I'll have a better answer for that question once I drive the car for the first time.
Yeah, and that's what you have to do. That's Alexander Rossi right there talking about joining Andretti Autosport for the 2016 Verizon IndyCar Series season full-time in that car. And you look at it, he's a California guy. He's a fairly young California guy. But really, you look at it, he was in Formula One. He raced a handful of races out there. And, I mean, really, it's a tough series. It's a very tough series. And you look at it, he has had some success. He's had some good finishes, but he doesn't have anything that stands out, really. Nothing that really, shows, oh, wow, he can do this. Because he really just has, unfortunately, not a lot of seat time in those. And I do think that he can get over here and do some good things. He ran the Sports Car Championship a couple of seasons ago. He ran a race there and really, he did pretty good in that. He did okay in that one, I should say. He didn't finish on the podium, but it was respectable. He raced the 24-hour of Le Mans back in 2013. Started 21st, finished 23rd. Just really, I mean, he was running at the end, but he was a few 30 laps down, give or take, in that race. And he raced 5 races last year in Formula One, and to see him come over here now and to see what he does here, I think that this is good for him, frankly. I think it's good for his career because he has something that's a little bit more stable. He's going to be running the full season with Andretti Autosport, so the fact that you have that full-time ride means that you can develop those relationships with your crew chief, and really go from there because he's got that entire number 98 Honda to himself. It's his. He's going to make his debut March 1st at Sebring in the rookie test, and you could tell it's a result of the merger from Brian Hurt Motorsports and Michael Andretti's organization, and this is only good because you have all those engineers, you have all those people, and all the resources coming together in one big effort to make this 24-year-old really go forward and do something great. He has 209 Formula car starts, including 42 wins. He's got 75 podiums, 36 poles, fairly high winning percentage, actually. And Michael Andretti, along with Rossi and Scott Speed, who currently compete for Andretti's Global Class team, make up the last 3 American-born drivers to compete in Formula One. And it's very interesting that you have all of those guys in racing for one team, more or less, now. It's kind of a cool coincidence, actually. But I think he is, after time, going to develop his skills behind this car. I do see a podium in his future in 2016. Don't know if that includes a win, but I do expect to see him on the podium at least a few times this season. I know that's asking a lot, but he's a very talented driver. He's in some great equipment. He's got a great crew around him. Give him some time to, get antiquated and get relaxed with this thing, and he'll do great things. When he gets to the road courses the street courses, like Long Beach in a few races, actually, he'll do great things. He really will. We'll see that experience come forward, and we'll see his knowledge and his skills come forward on those street courses and on the road courses as well. The ovals, I expect good things out of him. It's just a matter of getting himself antiquated to the car. It'll happen. It will happen. Just give him some time, and you'll see some really good things out of Rossi this season. So I expect to keep an eye on him this season so far. I want to remind you the poll question. The Daytona 500 this last weekend, Denny Hamlin was the winner. The number 11 car, the most winningest car number in NASCAR history, with different drivers and different teams using it throughout NASCAR 60-plus year history. So my question is this. The number 11 car has won the Daytona 500 3 times, including this last weekend with Denny Hamlin. What are the 2 other drivers that have won the Daytona 500 in a number 11 car, and what years did they win it? Think not 80s and not 50s. So not 80s, not 50s, not 90s, or 2000s. If that doesn't knock it down for you a little bit there, I don't know what will. At the Alan Bailey on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can also use the hashtag ARNRace in order to get in on this conversation. Send me who you think it is. We'll reveal it a little bit later on in the program. And as we shift back over to NASCAR a little bit here, I know NASCAR heavy. A lot of news coming out of NASCAR today. We see the announcement. Stewart-HAAS Racing made the announcement. They let it leak by accident a couple of days ago, actually. Monday, if you looked at Stewart-HAAS Racing's website, and there's a screen cap of it up on ARNrace.com if you want to see, under latest news, we saw yesterday that the headline, Stewart-HAAS Racing names Ty Dillon to interim driver of the number 14 Chevrolet at Atlanta, Phoenix, and Fontana, Vickers to drive the number 14 Chevrolet in Las Vegas. And it was put up and taken down in about 20 minutes, and then after that, every media outlet, including ARNrace.com, started picking up the story, and then basically it kind of went from there. And we saw the bombshell be dropped, and then we really saw exactly what you think happened. They put it back up and they made it official. So Ty Dillon going to be in that number 14 car for Atlanta, Phoenix, and at the Auto Club Speedway in Fontana. So we will see him back in that car back in that car, I should say, this weekend. Brian Vickers, who drove the last 2 weeks out in Daytona in that number 14 car, going to return to the car in Las Vegas, actually, for the March 6th race for the start of the NASCAR Goes West tour out here on this side of the country. So we'll expect to see that out of the team and the organization, which is going to be very cool to see what this rookie can do in this, frankly, very good car. So we'll see what he can do in this equipment. What we'll go ahead and do now is we will step aside for the final time. When we return, going to wrap the entire show up, talk some Supercross, actually, because believe it or not, Supercross happened this last weekend. Saw a very violent, scary moment with Joey Savacci this last weekend, up and over the handlebars. We'll get you an update on him, and we'll also talk about why you should get out to the Atlanta area this weekend if you're a gearhead, and what you can do this weekend out in the Atlanta area. Don't go anywhere. You're shifting gears right here on ARN.
Sick of bad race coverage or none at all from those other networks? Make ARN your one and only for all things motorsports. ARN, the Motorsports Authority.
You must have thrown 1,000 pitches teaching him to hit a home run. Spent countless Saturdays running routes so he could learn to hit an open receiver. Endless afternoons teaching him how to hit the three-pointer. But how much time have you spent teaching him what not to hit? Teaching boys that all violence against women is wrong is one of the most important things a man can do. Learn how to start the conversation at teachearly.org. Brought to you by Futures Without Violence and the Ad Council.
Geico applauds your inner happy camper.
A merit badge of awesomeness goes out to the part of you that wants to put the recreation in recreational vehicle. The part of you that packs up everything and everybody in the RV and says, let's get this show on the road. Because Geico has specialized agents who help save money on more than just car insurance. Geico will insure that entire RV, so you can get the s'more making, poison ivy dodging, same song singing, ghost storytelling, campfire building, best time you ever had with your family show on the road.
Geico for your RV. See how much you could save.
You're shifting gears on ARN. Here's Alan Bailey.
That you are, my friends. Welcome on back. Now, asked this question earlier. Denny Hamlin won the Daytona 500 this last weekend. 3 wins for the number 11 car in the Great American Race. Obviously, Denny Hamlin in 2016 is one of them. The other two? Well, one of them was way back in 1977. A guy named Cale Yarborough took that number 11 car to a victory in the Great American Race. But the first driver to do it, none other than who I think is probably one of the greatest race car drivers in the history of American auto sports, and that is Mario Andretti. Drove it to the victory in the 1967 Daytona 500 in a car that, frankly, was not his to drive. He got a second-tier equipment and wasn't expected to win the Daytona 500 that year. Outmuscled his teammate and ended up taking the 11 car to victory lane. And, by the way, Denny Hamlin's victory this last weekend in the Daytona 500 was the 207th time in NASCAR Sprint Cup Series history that a number 11 car has gone to victory lane in the Sprint Cup Series. The most of all car numbers. In case you're wondering, the number 43 is second on that list at about 190-ish, give or take. No, Richard did not drive the number 43 to all of his 200 victories. That's why we see the size, the difference. That's why there's a difference in that one. So relax. You're not crazy. I already did the research for you, okay? Just relax. Now, this last weekend out in Arlington, we saw some amazing Supercross racing. Ken Roczen might just still be in this one. He captured his second Monster Energy AMA Supercross victory of the 2016 season in front of everybody out at AT&T Stadium on Saturday. It was, in 250, it was Cooper Webb who got his 4th win of the season, which helped him regain the points lead. Now, Roczen scored the whole shot award and just drove away from Dungey. Huge power play move. On the opening lap, Dungey made a pass for the lead. However, it wouldn't last long. Roczen retaliated to steal the lead back on lap number 1 and held it throughout the entire race. Now, Cole Seeley moved into the 3rd position on lap number 4, while Rockstar Energy's Husqvarna factory team Jason Anderson followed him into fourth place. At the halfway point, Anderson began to close the gap on Seeley, eventually making that pass to take over the third position on lap number 15. In the final stages of the race, Dungey had gained momentum and inched up to the back wheel of the German rider. However, the two riders set a blistering pace. Roczen rode flawlessly and actually held used the lap riders to his advantage to fend off multiple attacks by Dungey, claiming his 6th career victory, second of the year, and moving 3 more points closer to last year's defending champ in the point standings. And looking at those point standings, now the lead, not that much actually, only 23 markers between Dungey in the lead and Roczen in second. Jason Anderson right now third. He sits 32 markers back, and Cole Seeley fourth, Eli Tomac fifth in the point standings right now. Now looking at 250, Cooper Webb leading Joey Savacci by really 11 points right now. Christian Craig third in the point standings in the West 250 point standings. And oh man, I truly feel for Joey Savacci, because he went through a very hard hit. He went through the whoops and wrecked right in front of Webb and went down hard over the bars, flipping end over end. Just such a hard hit for him. He went down hard. As far as we know, he is okay, still a little bit sore, but really still feeling the effects of a very hard wreck this last weekend out in Arlington. This weekend, we will see the Supercross boys take to Atlanta's Georgia Dome this weekend out in Atlanta. And by the way, you have NASCAR heading out to Atlanta this weekend. You're going to see the Xfinity and the Cup Series out there, and you're going to have Supercross on Saturday. That is extremely cool. Extremely cool. And yeah, you're going to have the trucks on Friday night as well. So here's what you do, gearheads. Trucks on Friday, Xfinity on Saturday. You have Supercross on Saturday night, and then Cup Race on Sunday. That's a that is an amazing 4-header weekend. I don't even know what that quadruple header weekend out there. Amazing. And if you have time in there, work in the fact that NHRA is heading to Phoenix this weekend. Their second race of the 2016 season. They wrapped up their season opener a couple of weeks ago out here in Pomona. Fantastic racing out here. Fantastic. They made a number of rule changes. Fox did have some technical issues and some bugs that they had to work out, and they worked them out, and we saw a great product on Sunday when they went live for the first time on FS1 for drag racing, and we'll continue to see that product again this weekend on Fox Sports 1. Highly encourage you to check that out, because we're going to see some amazing things out of them all season long. Want to encourage you, log on to ARNrace.com. You can download and listen to past episodes of Shifting Gears. You can also drop us a line on there. Highly encourage you to. Alan@arnrace.com is my email. Send me stuff. I absolutely love hearing and talking to you guys. Also, at The Alan Bailey on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram is where you can get me. You can check it out on arnrace.com on Facebook. You can check out ARN Race on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube at ARN Race, where you could drop us lines. So, like I said, this weekend on the calendar, you have Atlanta for the Cup, Xfinity, and Truck Series. Triple header weekend for those guys. Supercross 450 going to be taken to the Georgia Dome on Saturday. NHRA is in Phoenix this weekend for some amazing racing. My friends, it is an amazing weekend. 4 series racing all at once. When's IndyCar racing? Well, now that you mention it, not for a little while, actually. Not for a few weeks when they take to St. Petersburg on the 13th of next month. But you know what? That's okay, because racing is back in full swing, baby, and I'm absolutely loving it. I love this. I love the fact that we're in it. I love the fact that we have multiple races to talk about, and I love the fact that ARN continues to let me do this with you fine folks here. I want you involved. Going to be some great racing this weekend. At The Alan Bailey on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram all weekend long. Send me stuff. I'm going to be putting stuff up all weekend long, and I can guarantee you it's going to be a heck of a weekend. Congratulations to Denny Hamlin. Congratulations to everybody at Joe Gibbs Racing for the Daytona 500 victory this last weekend. Amazing, amazing win. Also, Stewart-HAAS Racing to Ford, thank you for creating some more jobs for our friends down there in NASCAR country, down in the North Carolina area. Good luck to everybody this weekend racing out of Atlanta for NASCAR and for Supercross, as well as everybody in drag racing world, the NHRA Drag Racing Series. Mellow Yellow out there racing out in Phoenix this weekend. Have a fun, safe, productive weekend with a little relaxation. Enjoy the races, gearheads. For everybody here at the American Racing Network and Shifting Gears, I'm Alan Bailey. See ya at the track.
You've been listening to the American Racing Network, a Turn for Media company. This is ARN, the Motorsports Authority.